The rain was coming down in sheets that night, the kind of storm that makes you feel like the world's about to wash away. Somewhere in a small Ohio town, two little girls, twin sisters, just 6 years old, were tucked into their beds, their dad pacing the living room downstairs. He was supposed to be their protector, the one person they could count on. But by morning, those girls were gone. Vanished. No trace, no clues, just an empty house and a father with a story that didn't add up. Their grandmother, a woman who'd already lost so much, refused to believe they were just gone. She started digging, following whispers and shadows, until she stumbled on something that made her blood run cold. What she found would unravel a mystery that no one saw coming. And then, in a completely different corner of the world, there's this black teen on a crowded bus, just trying to get through his day. He sees a pregnant white woman struggling to stand, and without a second thought, he gives up his seat. She smiles, slips him a note, and walks away. That note. It changes his life forever. 2 stories, 2 moments, tied together by the kind of human connection that can either break you or make you. Stick with me, because you're not gonna believe where this goes. Picture this, it's 2018, and the town of Willow Creek is the kind of place where everybody knows everybody. The twin girls, Lily and Luna, were the light of their grandmother's life. They had these big, curious eyes and giggles that could melt anyone's heart. Their dad, Mark, was a charmer, always quick with a smile, but there was something about him that never sat right with his mother-in-law, Ellen. Maybe it was the way he'd dodge questions about his job or how he'd get this faraway look when the girls asked about their mom, who'd passed away a year earlier. Ellen tried to shake off her unease, telling herself she was just being overprotective. After all, Mark was their father. He loved them. Didn't he? But that night, when the storm hit, everything changed. Mark called Ellen at dawn, his voice shaking. "They're gone," he said. "I went to check on them, and their beds were empty." Ellen's heart stopped. She raced to the house, her mind spinning with questions. The police were already there, combing through the girls' room, but something felt off. The window was open, sure, but there was no sign of a break-in. No footprints in the mud outside. And Mark? He kept changing his story. First, he said he heard nothing, then he mentioned a strange noise but didn't check. Ellen's gut screamed that he knew more than he was letting on. Meanwhile, across the country in a bustling city, a kid named Jamal was just trying to make it through another day. He was 17, working part-time at a corner store to help his mom with bills. Life hadn't been easy for them. His dad walked out when he was little, and his mom worked double shifts to keep the lights on. But Jamal had this quiet strength, the kind that comes from knowing you've got to keep going no matter what. That day, the bus was packed, people squeezed in like sardines. Jamal was bone-tired, but when he saw a pregnant woman gripping the railing, her face pale, he didn't hesitate. Take my seat," he said, standing up. She looked at him, surprised, like she wasn't used to kindness from strangers. "Thank you," she whispered, easing into the seat. As she got off at her stop, she pressed a folded piece of paper into his hand. "Read this later," she said, her eyes intense. Jamal nodded, confused, and slipped the note into his pocket. He had no idea that those few words scrawled on that paper were about to turn his world upside down. Back in Willow Creek, Ellen was a woman possessed. The police had hit a dead end, calling the girl's disappearance a possible runaway case. Runaway? At 6 years old? Ellen wasn't buying it. She started asking questions around town, talking to neighbors, teachers, anyone who might have seen something. Most people just shook their heads, offering pity but no answers. But then, a gas station clerk mentioned something odd. A week before the girls vanished, Mark had been in, buying a burner phone. "Paid cash," the clerk said. "Seemed in a hurry." Ellen's stomach twisted. Why would Mark need a burner phone? She started piecing things together, remembering little things that hadn't made sense at the time, like how Mark had been taking the girls on special trips lately, but they'd come back quiet, not their usual chatty selves. Ellen couldn't shake the feeling that Mark was hiding something big. She went back to the house, searching every corner, every drawer, until she found it, a locked box under a floorboard in Mark's closet. Her hands shook as she pried it open. Inside was a photo of the girls with a woman she didn't recognize and a phone number scribbled on the back. Who was this woman? And why was Mark keeping secrets? On the other side of the country, Jamal finally got a chance to read the note. He was sitting on his bed, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. He unfolded the paper, expecting maybe a thank you or a phone number. Instead, the words hit him like a punch. You're the kind of person the world needs. Meet me at the address below tomorrow. Your future starts now. There was an address, a time, and a name, Claire. Jamal's heart raced. Was this some kind of scam? He'd heard stories about people getting lured into trouble with promises like that. But something about Claire's eyes on that bus, the way she'd looked at him, made him think this was real. He showed the note to his mom, expecting her to tell him to throw it away. Instead, she smiled, tears in her eyes. Go, she said. You've got nothing to lose. The next day, Jamal stood outside a fancy office building, his palms sweaty. What was waiting for him inside? And how could a single act of kindness lead to something this huge? Ellen's discovery of the photo and phone number was just the beginning. She called the number, her heart pounding, but it went straight to voicemail. The voice on the recording was a woman's, soft but guarded. Leave a message, it said. Ellen didn't know what to say, so she hung up. She took the photo to the police, but they brushed it off, saying it could be anyone, a relative, a friend. But Ellen knew better. She started digging deeper, tracking down old friends of Mark's, even contacting his ex-co-workers. One of them, a guy named Pete, hesitated when she asked about Mark's past. He got into some trouble a while back, Pete finally admitted. Money stuff. Owed some bad people. Ellen's mind raced. Was Mark in debt? Had he done something desperate to get out of it? The thought made her sick, but she couldn't stop now. She kept pushing, following every lead, until she found herself standing outside a rundown apartment complex an hour away. The woman in the photo lived there, she was sure of it. As Ellen knocked on the door, her heart in her throat, she braced herself for whatever truth was waiting on the other side. Jamal's meeting with Claire was like something out of a movie. She wasn't just some random woman, she was the CEO of a tech company, someone who'd built a fortune from nothing. She'd been on that bus by chance, heading to a meeting, when Jamal's kindness caught her attention. I see potential in you, she told him, her voice steady. I want to offer you a scholarship, a mentorship, whatever you need to build a future. Jamal could barely process it. A scholarship? For what? He wasn't even sure he was college material. But Claire wasn't messing around. She handed him a folder with details, schools, programs, opportunities he'd never dreamed of. This isn't charity, she said. It's an investment in who you are. Jamal walked out of that office feeling like he was floating. But as he headed home, a nagging thought crept in. Why him? And what did Claire really want in return? He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her offer than she was letting on. In Willow Creek, the pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was darker than Ellen could have imagined. The woman in the apartment wasn't home, but a neighbor let slip that she'd seen her with two little girls a few days ago, girls who looked a lot like Lily and Luna. Ellen's knees buckled. Were her granddaughters here? Alive? She called the police, begging them to check the apartment, but they told her they needed more evidence. Frustrated, Ellen went back to the phone number, this time leaving a message. I know you have my girls, she said, her voice shaking with anger and fear. Tell me where they are. Hours later, her phone buzzed with a text. Meet me tomorrow. Come alone. Ellen's heart raced. Was this a trap? Or was it her only chance to find Lily and Luna? She didn't know who this woman was or what Mark had gotten himself into, but she was ready to face whatever came next. Jamal's life was changing faster than he could keep up with. He started meeting with Claire regularly, learning about her company, her vision. She introduced him to people who seemed larger-than-life entrepreneurs, innovators, people who saw something in him he'd never seen in himself. But the more time he spent in this new world, the more he felt like an outsider. Some of Claire's colleagues gave him side-eye, like they didn't think he belonged. And then there was the note. Claire had asked him to keep it quiet, not to tell anyone about how they'd met. People might not understand, she'd said. Jamal nodded, but the secrecy bothered him. What was she hiding? And why did it feel like every step forward came with a catch? As he stood at a crossroads, torn between his old life and this new opportunity, he couldn't help but wonder if he'd made a mistake trusting her. Ellen's meeting with the mystery woman was set for a diner at the edge of town, a place so quiet you could hear the coffee machine hum. She sat in a booth, her hands wrapped around a cold mug, every nerve on edge. The door jingled, and a woman walked in, the same one from the photo. She was younger than Ellen expected, with tired eyes and a guarded expression. "You're Ellen," the woman said, sliding into the booth. "I'm Sarah." Ellen's voice was steady, but her heart was pounding. "Where are my granddaughters?" Sarah looked away, her fingers twisting a napkin. "They're safe," she said finally. "But you need to understand something about Mark." Ellen leaned forward, her breath catching. What did Sarah know? And why did it feel like the truth was about to change everything? As Sarah started to talk, Ellen braced herself for a story she wasn't sure she was ready to hear. And somewhere, in a different world, Jamal was holding that note again, rereading the words that had set all this in motion, wondering if kindness was really enough to change a life or if it came with a price he wasn't ready to pay. Ellen's eyes locked onto Sarah's, searching for any hint of a lie. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and greasy fries, and the faint hum of a jukebox played in the background, but all Ellen could focus on was the woman sitting across from her. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she tore the napkin into tiny pieces, avoiding Ellen's gaze. "Mark's not who you think he is," Sarah said, her voice low, almost drowned out by the clink of dishes from the kitchen. Ellen's stomach churned. She'd always had her doubts about her son-in-law, but hearing it from this stranger made it real in a way she wasn't ready for. "What do you mean?" Ellen asked, her voice sharp. Sarah hesitated, glancing toward the diner's entrance like she expected someone to burst in. "He got in deep with some people," she said finally. "People who don't mess around. He owed them money, a lot of it. When he couldn't pay, they didn't just threaten him. They wanted something else." Ellen's heart thudded. "My granddaughters," she whispered, the words tasting like bile. Sarah didn't nod, didn't confirm it, but the look in her eyes said enough. Ellen gripped the edge of the table, her mind racing. Was Mark desperate enough to trade his own daughters to save himself? And who was Sarah in all this, a bystander, a conspirator, or something else entirely? Across the country, Jamal was wrestling with his own questions. He sat on a park bench, the folder Claire had given him open on his lap. The papers inside outlined a future he'd never dared to imagine, a full-ride scholarship to a tech program, mentorship from industry leaders, even an internship at Claire's company. It was everything he'd ever wanted, handed to him on a silver platter. But as he stared at the words, doubt gnawed at him. Why was Claire so invested in him? He'd only given her a seat on a bus, a small act of kindness anyone could have done. He thought back to their last meeting, how she'd dodged his questions about her past, her reasons for picking him. "You remind me of someone," she'd said once, her voice soft, but when he pressed her, she changed the subject. Now, sitting in the park with the city buzzing around him, Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that Claire was holding something back. He pulled the note from his pocket, the one she'd given him on the bus, and read it again. "Your future starts now." The words felt heavier every time, like a promise with strings attached. His phone buzzed, a text from his mom, asking how the meeting went. He started to reply, but his thumb hovered over the screen. Should he tell her about his doubts, or was he just overthinking it? Back in Willow Creek, Sarah's story was starting to unfold, but every word only deepened the mystery. She leaned closer to Ellen, her voice barely above a whisper. "I met Mark a few months ago," she said. "He was working odd jobs, trying to stay under the radar. He told me about the girls, how he was trying to protect them." Ellen's jaw tightened. Protect them? From what? Sarah seemed to sense her skepticism. "I didn't know everything at first," she went on. "But he was scared, Ellen. I've never seen someone so paranoid. He kept saying they were watching him, that he had to do what they wanted or it'd be worse for the girls." Ellen's mind spun. Who were they? Debt collectors? Something more dangerous? She thought about the burner phone, the secret trips Mark had taken with the girls. Had he been meeting with these people, making deals behind everyone's backs. Where are Lily and Luna now? Ellen demanded, her voice shaking. Sarah's eyes darted to the window again. I can't tell you that, she said. Not yet. But I swear, I'm trying to help them. Ellen wanted to believe her, but trust was hard to come by when her granddaughters' lives were on the line. Why should I believe you? She asked. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a small, crumpled drawing, a child's sketch of two stick-figure girls holding hands under a rainbow. Luna gave me this, Sarah said softly. Ellen's breath caught. It was Luna's style, down to the little hearts she always drew in the corners. But that only made the fear sharper. If Sarah had this, where were the girls now? Jamal decided to do some digging of his own. He wasn't the type to just accept things at face value, not when his whole future was on the line. After leaving the park, he went to the library, where the computers were free and the Wi-Fi was decent. He started searching for Claire's company, hoping to find something that would either ease his mind or confirm his suspicions. The website was polished, full of buzzwords like innovation and empowerment, but it didn't tell him much about Claire herself. He dug deeper, scrolling through news articles and social media posts. Most of what he found was glowing. Claire was a rising star, a self-made woman who'd turned her startup into a tech giant. But then he stumbled on a blog post from a few years back, buried in the search results. It was written by someone claiming to be a former employee, accusing Claire of being ruthless, of using people to get what she wanted. The post was vague, with no hard proof, and Jamal wasn't sure what to make of it. Was this just a disgruntled worker, or was there truth to it? He bookmarked the page and kept searching, his unease growing. Claire had said this wasn't charity, that she saw potential in him. But what if her interest wasn't about him at all? What if he was just a pawn in some bigger game? Ellen wasn't ready to let Sarah off the hook. The drawing was proof that Sarah had seen the girls, but it wasn't enough. If you're really trying to help, Ellen said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her, you'll tell me everything. Right now. Sarah sighed, rubbing her temples. It's not that simple, she said. If I talk too much, it could put them in more danger. Ellen's patience snapped. They're already in danger, she hissed, leaning across the table. A few heads turned in the diner, but Ellen didn't care. You know something, and you're playing games with me. Tell me where they are, or I'm going straight to the police. Sarah's face paled, and for a moment, Ellen thought she'd bolt. But then Sarah leaned back, her shoulders slumping. Okay, she said. But not here. It's not safe. She scribbled an address on a napkin and slid it across the table. Meet me there tomorrow morning. I'll tell you what I can. Ellen took the napkin, her fingers brushing against the rough paper. Another meeting, another delay. She wanted to scream, to shake Sarah until the truth spilled out, but she forced herself to stay calm. She'd come this far for Lily and Luna. One more day wouldn't break her. But as she left the diner, the napkin clutched in her hand, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a trap. And somewhere, deep down, she wondered if Mark was still out there, watching, waiting for his next move. Ellen barely slept that night, the napkin with Sarah's address burning a hole in her pocket. She sat at her kitchen table, the clock ticking past midnight, staring at the drawing Luna had made. Those little stick figures under the rainbow felt like a lifeline, proof her granddaughters were out there somewhere. But the questions kept piling up. Who was Sarah, really? A friend of Mark's, caught up in his mess? Or someone with her own agenda? Ellen's mind drifted to Mark, the man she'd trusted to raise her daughter's girls. She remembered the day he married her daughter, how his charm had won everyone over. But there'd always been cracks, late nights he couldn't explain, money that disappeared from their joint account. Now, with Lily and Luna missing, those cracks felt like chasms. Ellen's phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a text from an unknown number. Stop looking. You're making it worse. Her breath caught. Was this Mark? Sarah? Or one of the bad people Sarah had mentioned? She wanted to call the police, but Sarah's warning about danger echoed in her head. Instead, she forwarded the text to a friend, a retired cop named Dave, who'd been helping her on the side. I'll trace it, Dave texted back. But Ellen, be careful tomorrow. Careful wasn't an option anymore. She was too deep in this mystery, and every step felt like it was leading her closer to the truth or to something much worse. In the city, Jamal was grappling with his own crossroads. He'd spent hours at the library, digging into Claire's past, and the more he found, the less certain he felt. That blog post from the ex-employee wasn't the only red flag. There were whispers on obscure forums, people claiming Claire's company had shady dealings, partnerships with questionable investors, projects that never saw the light of day. None of it was concrete, but it was enough to make Jamal's stomach twist. He thought about the scholarship, the internship, the life Claire was dangling in front of him. It was a dream, but dreams didn't come free. He decided to talk to his best friend, Marcus, who always had a way of cutting through the noise. They met at their usual spot, a basketball court near Jamal's apartment, the air sharp with fall chill. "Man, this sounds too good to be true," Marcus said, tossing the ball to Jamal. "She picks you out of nowhere, hands you all this. What's her angle?" Jamal shrugged, dribbling the ball. "She says it's about potential, about giving back." Marcus snorted. "People like her don't give back unless they're getting something. Maybe she's using you to look good, like some PR stunt." The words hit hard. Was that it? Was Jamal just a feel-good story for Claire's brand? He didn't want to believe it, but the secrecy, the vague answers, it all added up to something he couldn't ignore. Back in Willow Creek, Ellen's meeting with Sarah was set for a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where people paid cash and nobody asked questions. Ellen parked her car a block away, her heart pounding as she approached the room number Sarah had given her. The motel's neon sign flickered, casting eerie shadows on the cracked pavement. She knocked, and Sarah opened the door, looking more frazzled than she had at the diner. "You alone?" Sarah asked, peering past Ellen into the darkness. Ellen nodded, stepping inside. The room smelled of stale smoke and cheap air freshener, and a single lamp cast a dim glow over a bed with a sagging mattress. Sarah locked the door behind them, her movements quick, nervous. "I don't have much time," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Mark's in deeper than I thought. Those people he owes. They're not just loan sharks. They're connected, big time." Ellen's mouth went dry. "Connected how?" Sarah hesitated, then pulled out a photo from her bag, not the one Ellen had found, but a new one. It showed Mark at a warehouse, talking to a man in a suit who looked like he didn't belong in Willow Creek. "This was taken a month ago," Sarah said. "Mark was supposed to deliver something to them. When he didn't, they took the girls as collateral." Ellen's knees buckled, and she sank into a chair. Collateral? Her granddaughters were being used as pawns in some criminal deal? "Where are they now?" she demanded, her voice shaking. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know," she admitted. "I was supposed to help Mark, but I got scared. I've been hiding, trying to figure out how to get them back." Ellen wanted to scream, to shake Sarah until she spilled everything, but the fear in Sarah's eyes was real. This wasn't just about Mark anymore. It was bigger, darker, and Ellen was caught in the middle. Jamal's conversation with Marcus stuck with him, gnawing at his confidence. He decided to confront Claire, but he needed to be smart about it. He texted her, asking for another meeting, keeping his tone casual. She replied almost instantly, suggesting a coffee shop downtown. When Jamal arrived, Claire was already there, looking polished as ever in a tailored blazer, her smile warm but guarded. "You're early," she said, sliding a latte across the table. "What's on your mind?" Jamal took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I'm grateful for everything you're offering," he started, "but I need to know why me. Why go out of your way for some kid you met on a bus?" Claire's smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough to make Jamal's pulse quicken. "I told you," she said, her voice steady. "You remind me of someone I lost. Someone who deserved a chance." Jamal leaned forward, not letting it go. "Who was it? And why does it feel like there's more you're not telling me?" Claire's eyes flicked to the window, then back to him. "You're smart, Jamal," she said. "But you're asking questions that don't have easy answers. Trust me, this is about your future." The way she said "trust me" sent a chill down his spine. It was the same tone his mom used when she was hiding something to protect him. But protect him from what? They talked. Jamal noticed a man at a nearby table, watching them a little too closely. Was he imagining it, or was Claire being watched too? Ellen left the motel with more questions than answers, the photo of Mark and the mystery man tucked in her purse. Sarah had promised to reach out with more information, but Ellen wasn't holding her breath. She drove to Dave's house, her retired cop friend, needing someone to help her make sense of this. Dave listened, his face grim as he studied the photo. "This guy in the suit," he said, tapping the image, "he's not local. Looks like someone with money, power. I'll ask around, see if any of my old contacts recognize him." Ellen nodded, but her mind was on the girls. Were they scared? Hungry? Were they even together? The thought of Lily and Luna in the hands of strangers made her chest ache. As she drove home, her phone buzzed again, another text from the unknown number. "You met her. Bad move." Ellen's blood ran cold. Someone was watching her, tracking her every step. She pulled over, her hands shaking as she texted Dave the new message. Whoever was behind this knew too much, and Ellen was starting to realize she wasn't just fighting for her granddaughters, she was up against something far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Ellen's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white, the cryptic text still glowing on her phone screen. "You met her. Bad move." The words felt like a noose tightening around her neck. Whoever sent it knew she'd been with Sarah, which meant they were watching her every move. The quiet streets of Willow Creek, usually so familiar, now felt like a maze of shadows, every passing car a potential threat. She wanted to call Dave, but her phone was nearly dead, and the charger was back at home. Her mind raced with images of Lily and Luna. Were they okay? Were they scared? The thought of her granddaughters in the hands of the kind of people Sarah described, people who saw them as collateral, made her stomach lurch. Ellen forced herself to keep driving, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. Was that black sedan behind her following too closely? She turned down a side street, then another, her heart pounding as the sedan stayed on her tail. Finally, she pulled into a gas station, the bright lights offering a sliver of safety. The sedan slowed but didn't stop, cruising past and disappearing into the night. Ellen let out a shaky breath, but the relief was fleeting. She needed answers, and she needed them now. Sarah had given her a lead, the warehouse in the photo where Mark had met the man in the suit. It was a long shot, but it was all she had. Ellen plugged her phone into the car's USB port, sent Dave a quick message about the sedan, and headed toward the address Sarah had scribbled on a scrap of paper. Whatever was waiting at that warehouse, she was ready to face it for her girls. Across the country, Jamal's meeting with Claire had left him more unsettled than ever. The man at the coffee shop, the one who'd been watching them, had vanished when Jamal looked again, but the prickling sensation on the back of his neck didn't go away. Claire had brushed off his questions, redirecting the conversation to the scholarship and the bright future ahead of him. But her words felt rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. As Jamal walked home, the city lights blurring around him, he couldn't stop thinking about Marcus's warning. Was he just a PR stunt for Claire, a way to make her company look good? Or was there something deeper, something tied to the someone she said he reminded her of? He pulled out his phone and scrolled through the bookmarked blog post from the ex-employee, rereading the accusations about Claire's ruthless tactics. There was a contact link at the bottom, an email address. Jamal hesitated, then typed a quick message, "I'm working with Claire. Need to know what you meant about her. Please reply." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, his pulse racing. If Claire was hiding something, he needed to know before he got in any deeper. But as he slipped his phone back into his pocket, he noticed a car idling across the street, its headlights off. The same uneasy feeling from the coffee shop washed over him. Was he being paranoid, or was someone keeping tabs on him too? In Willow Creek, the warehouse loomed at the edge of town, a hulking shadow against the starry sky. Ellen parked a block away, her heart hammering as she approached on foot. The air was thick with the smell of oil and rust, and the distant hum of machinery sent a shiver down her spine. The photo of Mark and the man in the suit was tucked in her purse, a reminder of why she was here. She didn't know what she'd find, Lily and Luna, Mark, or something far worse, but she couldn't turn back now. The warehouse's side door was ajar, a sliver of dim light spilling onto the gravel. Ellen crept closer, her sneakers crunching softly, every sound amplified in the stillness. She peered through the crack, her breath catching. Inside, two men stood near a stack of crates, their voices low but urgent. One was the man from the photo, his suit pristine despite the grimy surroundings. The other was younger, jittery, clutching a phone. "He's late," the younger man said, his voice sharp. "If he doesn't show with the money, we're done waiting." The man in the suit shook his head. "He'll show. He knows what's at stake." Ellen's blood ran cold. Were they talking about Mark? And what was at stake, her granddaughters? She strained to hear more, but a sudden noise behind her, a twig snapping, made her freeze. She spun around, her heart in her throat, but no one was there. Or were they? The shadows seemed to shift, and Ellen's instincts screamed at her to run. But she couldn't. Not when she was this close. She took a step toward the door, her hand reaching for the handle, when her phone buzzed loudly in her purse. The men inside went silent, their heads snapping toward the door. Ellen's stomach dropped. She'd been heard. Jamal's unease grew as he quickened his pace home, the idling car still fresh in his mind. He kept his head down, weaving through the late-night crowds, but the feeling of being watched clung to him like damp clothes. When he reached his apartment, his mom was still at work, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. He locked the door, double-checking the bolt, and sat on the couch, his laptop open. The email to the ex-employee was still in his sent folder, no reply yet. He started digging again, this time searching for anything about Claire's past, family, old associates, anything that might explain her cryptic comments. He found an old article, buried deep in a local paper's archive, about a car accident years ago. Claire's younger brother had died, a teenager with big dreams and a knack for coding. The photo showed a kid who looked a little like Jamal, same eyes, same quiet smile. Was this the someone Claire meant? Jamal's chest tightened. If Claire saw her brother in him, it explained her intensity, but it didn't explain the secrecy or the man at the coffee shop. His phone pinged an email notification. The ex-employee had replied, "Meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you what I know. Be careful." Jamal's heart raced. He was about to reply when a knock at the door made him jump. It was late, too late for visitors. He crept to the peephole, his breath shallow. No one was there, but a folded piece of paper had been slipped under the door. He picked it up, his hands trembling, and unfolded it. The words were scrawled in black ink, "Stop asking questions." Jamal's blood ran cold. Whoever wrote this knew he was digging, and they weren't happy about it. Ellen scrambled away from the warehouse door, her phone still buzzing in her purse, the sound deafening in the quiet night. She ducked behind a rusted dumpster, her heart pounding as the warehouse door creaked open. The younger man stepped out, his eyes scanning the darkness. "Who's there?" he called, his voice sharp. Ellen held her breath, pressing herself against the cold metal, praying he wouldn't see her. Her phone buzzed again, and she fumbled to silence it, her fingers clumsy with panic. The man took a few steps forward, his flashlight beam sweeping the gravel. Ellen's mind raced. If she was caught, what would they do? Were Lily and Luna inside that warehouse, hidden among those crates? The man's flashlight lingered on the dumpster, and Ellen's stomach twisted. She was seconds from being found. But then a car engine roared in the distance, and the man cursed, turning back toward the warehouse. "Probably just kids," he muttered, slamming the door behind him. Ellen exhaled, her legs shaking, but she knew she couldn't stay. She had to get to Dave, tell him what she'd heard, and figure out her next move. As she crept back to her car, her phone lit up with a new text from the unknown number, "Last warning. Back off." Ellen's resolve hardened. They could threaten her all they wanted, but she wasn't stopping. Not until she had her girls back. Ellen's heart was still racing as she stumbled back to her car, the threatening text, "Last warning. Back off," searing itself into her mind. The warehouse's looming silhouette faded in her rearview mirror, but the fear clung to her like damp air. She drove toward Dave's house, her retired cop friend, her hands shaking on the wheel. The streets of Willow Creek were eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that made every rustle feel like a threat. Her phone, now charging, buzzed again, but she didn't dare look. She needed to focus, to tell Dave about the men in the warehouse, the talk of Mark and money, and the chilling possibility that Lily and Luna were closer than she'd thought. But as she turned onto Dave Street, her headlights caught something that made her slam on the brakes. Dave's front door was wide open, the porch light flickering. He never left his door open, not in a million years. Ellen's stomach dropped. She grabbed her phone, her fingers fumbling as she dialed Dave's number. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Had the people watching her gotten to him? She scanned the street, half expecting that black sedan to reappear, but it was empty. Against every instinct screaming at her to drive away, Ellen stepped out of the car, clutching her keys like a weapon. "Dave," she called, her voice barely above a whisper. No answer. She crept toward the house, her breath shallow, and that's when she saw it, a smear of blood on the doorframe, stark against the white paint. But then, a second twist hit her like a punch. Inside, on Dave's coffee table, was a photo of Lily and Luna, taken just days ago, with a note pinned to it, "You're closer than you think. Stop, or they're gone for good." Ellen's knees buckled. Someone had been in Dave's house, and they knew exactly how to break her. Miles away, Jamal's hands trembled as he held the note slipped under his door. "Stop asking questions." The words were written in a hurried scrawl, the ink smudged like whoever wrote it was in a rush. He locked the door again, double-checking the deadbolt, his mind spinning. Who knew he'd been digging into Claire's past? He hadn't told anyone except Marcus, and even then, he'd kept it vague. The email he'd sent to the ex-employee flashed in his mind. Had someone intercepted it? Or was Claire herself behind this, trying to scare him into silence? Jamal's eyes darted to the windows, the curtains suddenly feeling too thin. He grabbed his laptop, his fingers flying as he checked his email. The ex-employee had replied with an address for a meeting tomorrow, a diner on the edge of the city. "Come alone," the message read. "I'll tell you what Claire's really about." Jamal's heart pounded. He wanted answers, but the note in his hand felt like a warning he couldn't ignore. He thought about his mom, how proud she'd been when he told her about the scholarship. If he kept pushing, was he putting her in danger too? But then, another shock twisted the knife. His phone pinged with a new email, this one from an anonymous sender. It contained a single photo, Claire, standing in a parking lot, talking to the same man Jamal had seen watching them at the coffee shop. The caption read, "She's not who you think." Jamal's breath caught. Was Claire caught up in something bigger, something dangerous? And if she was, what did that mean for him? Ellen forced herself to step into Dave's house, her heart hammering so loud she could barely think. The blood on the doorframe was still wet, glistening under the flickering porch light. "Dave," she called again, her voice cracking. The living room was a mess, books knocked off shelves, a lamp tipped over, but there was no sign of Dave. Her eyes locked onto the photo of Lily and Luna on the coffee table, their smiling faces a gut punch. The note pinned to it, "You're closer than you think. Stop, or they're gone for good," felt like a taunt, daring her to keep going. She reached for the photo, her hands trembling, and noticed something else, a faint logo on the corner of the image, barely visible. It was from a convenience store, one she recognized from a town an hour away. Had the girls been there? Was this a clue, or another trap? Ellen's mind raced. She needed to find Dave, to make sure he was okay, but the blood and the note were screaming at her to run. She pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking as she snapped a picture of the note and photo, then texted it to herself as a backup. As she turned to leave, she heard a creak from the hallway. Her blood ran cold. Someone was in the house. She gripped her keys tighter, her eyes scanning for an escape, but the creak came again, closer this time. Ellen backed toward the door, her heart in her throat, when her phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. "Leave now, or you'll end up like him." The world tilted. Was Dave hurt, or worse? Ellen bolted for her car, her breath ragged, the photo of her granddaughters burning in her mind. She was closer to the truth than ever, but the cost was climbing, and she wasn't sure she could pay it. Jamal couldn't sit still. The photo of Claire with the mystery man had turned his world upside down. He paced his apartment, the note, "Stop asking questions," crumpled in his fist. He wanted to call Marcus, to tell him everything, but the idea of dragging his friend into this mess stopped him cold. Instead, he sat at his laptop, zooming in on the photo from the anonymous email. The man's face was clearer now, his expression hard, like someone used to giving orders. Jamal's gut told him this wasn't just about Claire's company or some PR stunt. This was something bigger, something that explained the secrecy, the warnings, the man at the coffee shop. He thought about the ex-employee's offer to meet at the diner. It was his best shot at answers, but the note under his door made it feel like walking into a lion's den. He checked the locks again, his paranoia spiking, and decided to call his mom. Her voice was tired but warm when she answered. "You okay, baby?" she asked. Jamal hesitated, the weight of everything pressing down on him. "Yeah," he lied. "Just thinking about stuff." He couldn't tell her about the note, not yet. But as he hung up, another email pinged. It was from the anonymous sender again, this time with a single line, "The diner tomorrow. Don't trust her." Jamal's stomach twisted. Was the ex-employee working with whoever sent the photo, or was this another layer of the trap? He didn't know, but one thing was clear: tomorrow's meeting wasn't just about answers, it was about survival. Ellen peeled out of Dave's driveway, her tires squealing as she sped toward the police station. The blood, the note, the photo, it was too much to handle alone. She needed help, even if it meant risking another warning from whoever was watching her. Her phone buzzed again, but she ignored it, her eyes fixed on the road. The convenience store logo on the photo was her only lead, a faint thread connecting her to Lily and Luna. She tried to focus on that, to push away the image of Dave's empty house and the blood on the doorframe. But the creak she'd heard in the hallway haunted her. Had someone been there, waiting to make sure she got the message? As she pulled into the police station parking lot, her phone lit up with another text: "You can't save them if you're dead." Ellen's breath hitched. The threats were escalating, each one more personal, more desperate. She clutched the photo of her granddaughters, their faces fueling her resolve. Whoever was behind this thought they could scare her into giving up. They were wrong. But as she stepped out of the car, a figure moved in the shadows across the lot, too quick to make out. Ellen froze, her keys clenched in her fist. The stakes were higher than ever, and the truth was closer, but so was the danger, and it was closing in fast. Ellen's heart pounded as she stood frozen in the police station parking lot, the shadowy figure vanishing into the darkness. The latest text, "You can't save them if you're dead," felt like a blade pressed against her throat. She clutched the photo of Lily and Luna, their smiling faces anchoring her to the fight. She couldn't run now, not when she was so close. Taking a shaky breath, she marched into the station, her resolve hardened. Inside, she found Officer Ramirez, one of the few cops who'd taken her seriously from the start. She spilled everything: the warehouse, the men, Dave's empty house, the blood, the note, and the convenience store logo on the photo. Ramirez's face grew grim as she showed him the texts. "We need to move fast," he said, grabbing his radio. "That store's in Millwood. If the girls were there, we might have a lead." Ellen's pulse raced. Millwood was close, too close for comfort. Ramirez assembled a small team, and within minutes, Ellen was in the back of a squad car, speeding toward the convenience store. Her phone stayed silent, but the quiet felt ominous, like the calm before a storm. As they neared Millwood, Ramirez's radio crackled with news. Dave had been found, alive but beaten, at a hospital. He'd been attacked at home, left with a warning to stop helping Ellen. Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. Dave's attack meant the people holding Lily and Luna were desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. When they reached the store, the clerk recognized the girls from the photo. "Saw them with a woman a few days ago," he said. They looked scared. Ellen's stomach twisted. Sarah. It had to be her. Ramirez got an address from the clerk, a house nearby. As the squad cars rolled out, Ellen braced herself. This was it. She was about to face the truth, whatever it cost. Across the country, Jamal's nerves were frayed as he approached the diner for his meeting with the ex-employee. The note, "Stop asking questions," was crumpled in his pocket, a constant reminder of the danger he was walking into. The anonymous email with the photo of Claire and the mystery man had only deepened his unease. The diner was nearly empty, the smell of bacon and coffee hanging in the air. A man in a worn jacket sat in a corner booth, his eyes flicking up as Jamal entered. "You the kid?" he asked, his voice gruff. Jamal nodded, sliding into the booth. The man, who introduced himself as Tom, wasted no time. "Claire's not what she seems," he said. "Her company's tied to some shady investors, people who don't like loose ends. That scholarship. It's a way to keep you close, make sure you don't talk." Jamal's heart sank. "Talk about what?" he asked. Tom leaned in, his voice low. "Her brother's accident wasn't an accident. She's been running from that truth for years, and you're a liability because you remind her of him." Jamal's mind reeled. Was Claire's kindness just guilt? Before he could ask more, the diner's door jingled, and the man from the coffee shop photo walked in, his eyes locking onto them. Tom cursed under his breath. "Go," he hissed. "Now." Jamal bolted for the back exit, his heart pounding, but as he reached the alley, he heard footsteps behind him. He ducked behind a dumpster, holding his breath as the man passed, muttering into a phone. Jamal's phone buzzed, a text from his mom, "Come home." Someone was here. Panic surged. Whatever Claire was involved in, it was following him home. In Millwood, the house was a run-down bungalow, its windows boarded up. Ellen stayed in the squad car as Ramirez and his team surrounded the property, their radios crackling with tension. Her hands shook as she clutched the photo of Lily and Luna, praying they were inside. The officers breached the door, and Ellen held her breath, every second stretching into eternity. Then, a shout from inside, "We've got them." Ellen's heart leaped. She pushed past the officer guarding the car, ignoring his protests, and ran toward the house. Inside, chaos reigned, officers cuffing a man she didn't recognize, Sarah sobbing in a corner. And there, in a back room, were Lily and Luna, clinging to each other, their eyes wide with fear. Ellen dropped to her knees, tears streaming as she pulled them into her arms. "You're safe," she whispered, over and over. The girls were thinner, their faces pale, but they were alive. Sarah, now in handcuffs, met Ellen's gaze. "I tried to protect them," she said, her voice breaking. "Mark sold them out. I couldn't let them get hurt." Ellen's relief turned to rage. "Mark? Where was he?" Ramirez approached, his expression grim. "We found evidence in the basement, documents, photos. This wasn't just about debt. Mark was working with a trafficking ring." Ellen's blood ran cold. Her son-in-law, the man she trusted, had betrayed his own daughters for money. The officers were still searching for him, but he'd vanished, likely tipped off. Ellen held the girls tighter, vowing to never let them out of her sight again. But as they left the house, a final text buzzed on her phone, from the same unknown number, "You got them back." "But I'm not done." Ellen's breath caught. Mark was still out there, and he wasn't giving up. Jamal made it home, his chest heaving as he locked the door. His mom was waiting, her face pale. "A man came by," she said. "Asked about you, said he was from some company. I didn't like his vibe." Jamal's stomach churned. He showed her the note, the photo, everything. Her eyes widened, but she nodded, her strength steadying him. "We're calling the police," she said. Before they could, a knock at the door made them freeze. Jamal peered through the peephole. "Claire." Her face was calm, but her eyes were desperate. "Jamal, let me in," she called. "I can explain." Against his better judgment, he opened the door, his mom standing firm behind him. Claire stepped inside, her hands raised. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said. "The man following you, he works for people I crossed. My brother found out about their deals, and they killed him. I've been trying to make it right, to help kids like you, like he was." Jamal's anger flared. "So I'm what, your redemption project?" Claire's face crumpled. "No. You're my chance to do something good." Before he could respond, the door burst open, and the man from the photo stormed in, a gun in his hand. "Enough," he snarled. "You're both done talking." Jamal's mom screamed, and Claire lunged, tackling the man. In the chaos, Jamal grabbed a lamp, smashing it over the man's head. He crumpled, the gun skidding across the floor. Police sirens wailed outside. His mom had texted 911. As officers swarmed in, Claire looked at Jamal, her eyes full of regret. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The police took her into custody, Her role in the shady deal's unclear. Jamal and his mom were safe, but as they hugged, a final twist hit. An email from Tom, sent just before the diner. Check Claire's scholarship fund. It's not her money. Jamal's blood ran cold. Whose money was it, and what had he almost been pulled into? The truth was out, but the shadows of Claire's past and Mark's betrayal lingered, leaving both Ellen and Jamal to wonder if they'd ever truly escape. Ellen held Lily and Luna close as they sat in the back of an ambulance outside the Millwood house, blankets draped over their small shoulders. The girls were quiet, their eyes still wide with the weight of what they'd been through, but they clung to her, their tiny hands gripping her sweater. The paramedics had checked them over, no serious injuries, just dehydration and exhaustion. Ellen's heart ached with relief, but the final text from the unknown number, "You got them back." "But I'm not done," echoed in her mind. Mark was still out there, a ghost she couldn't shake. Officer Ramirez approached, his face softened by the early morning light. "We've got an APB out for Mark," he said. "The evidence from the house ties him to the trafficking ring. He won't get far." Ellen nodded, but the knot in her stomach didn't loosen. She'd trusted Mark once, believed he loved his daughters. Now, she knew he'd sold them to save himself, and that betrayal cut deeper than any threat. Sarah, still in custody, had given a full statement, claiming she'd only helped Mark to keep the girls safe, feeding them, hiding them when she could. Ellen wasn't sure if she believed her, but Sarah's tears seemed real enough. As the ambulance doors closed, Lily whispered, "Is Daddy coming back?" Ellen's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart," she said softly. "But I'm here, and I'm never letting you go." She meant it. Whatever Mark was planning, she'd protect her granddaughters with everything she had. Across the country, Jamal sat at his kitchen table, his mom's arm around him as the police cleared out their apartment. The man who'd burst in, gun in hand, was in custody, his connection to Claire's shady investors confirmed. Claire herself was at the station, answering questions about her company's dealings and her brother's death. Jamal's head was still spinning from her confession that her kindness had been driven by guilt, a way to honor the brother she'd lost. But Tom's final email, "Check Claire's scholarship fund. It's not her money," had opened a new wound. He'd shown it to the police, who were now digging into the fund's origins. Early reports suggested it was tied to the same investors who'd killed Claire's brother, a front to clean their money. Jamal's stomach churned at the thought. He'd almost been a pawn in their game, his future bought with dirty cash. His mom squeezed his shoulder, her voice steady. "You did the right thing, baby," she said. "You trusted your gut." Jamal nodded, but the weight of it all, Claire's betrayal, the danger he'd brought to their door, pressed down on him. He thought about the note she'd given him on the bus, the one that started this. He'd kept it, tucked in his wallet, a reminder of how a single act of kindness had spiraled into something he couldn't control. In Willow Creek, the days that followed were a blur for Ellen. She took the girls to her house, turning the guest room into their own with bright blankets and stuffed animals. Lily and Luna were starting to smile again, their giggles filling the quiet moments, but Ellen saw the shadows in their eyes. They'd been through too much, seen things no child should. She enrolled them in counseling, determined to help them heal. Dave, recovering in the hospital, called to check in, his voice hoarse but warm. "You're one tough lady," he said, and Ellen managed a laugh. The police had tracked down more members of the trafficking ring, dismantling their operation, but Mark remained a ghost. Ellen couldn't relax, not with his last text lingering like a storm cloud. She installed new locks, a security system, anything to feel safe. One evening, as she tucked the girls into bed, Luna handed her a drawing, 2 stick-figure girls and a woman under a rainbow, just like the one Sarah had shown her. "That's you, Grandma," Luna said, her voice small. Ellen's eyes stung. She hugged them tight, promising herself she'd give them the life they deserved. But later that night, a knock at the door made her freeze. It was Ramirez, his face grim. "We found Mark," he said. "He was trying to cross the border. He's in custody." Ellen exhaled, relief flooding her, but Ramirez's next words stopped her cold. "He was carrying a letter, addressed to you. It's personal." Ellen took the sealed envelope, her hands trembling. She didn't open it, not yet. Whatever Mark had to say, she wasn't ready to hear it. Jamal's life slowly returned to normal, but normal felt different now. The police investigation into Claire's company was making headlines, exposing a web of corruption that reached far beyond her. The scholarship fund was frozen, its ties to illegal money confirmed. Jamal wasn't surprised, but it stung. He'd believed in Claire, even just a little, and that belief had almost cost him everything. He and his mom talked late into the night, deciding he'd apply to colleges the old-fashioned way, scholarships, loans, whatever it took. "You're smarter than any of them," she said, her eyes fierce with pride. Jamal smiled, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. He started working more hours at the corner store, saving every penny, and reconnected with Marcus, who'd been worried sick. One day, as he walked home from a shift, he passed the bus stop where he'd met Claire. He paused, pulling the note from his wallet. "Your future starts now." The words felt hollow now, but they reminded him of something else, his own strength, his ability to keep going. He tore the note into pieces, letting them scatter in the wind, and kept walking. The future was his to build, and he wasn't looking back. Ellen finally opened Mark's letter a week later, alone in her kitchen with a cup of tea gone cold. The words were scrawled in his familiar handwriting, but they felt like they came from a stranger. He didn't apologize, not really. Instead, he claimed he'd been trapped, forced to work with the ring to protect the girls. "I thought I could fix it," he wrote. "I was wrong." Ellen's jaw clenched. His excuses meant nothing. Lily and Luna had paid the price for his choices. The letter ended with a plea, "Don't hate me." Ellen folded it up, her hands steady, and tucked it away. She didn't hate him, not exactly. She pitied him, a man too weak to do right by his family. The girls never asked about him, and Ellen was grateful. They were healing, slowly, their laughter growing louder each day. Ellen sold her old house, moving to a new town where the girls could start fresh. She kept Ramirez's number on speed dial, just in case, but the threat stopped. Mark was behind bars, his trial looming, and the ring was crumbling. Ellen wasn't naive, she knew danger could linger, but she chose to focus on the present, on the girls' smiles, their future. Jamal and Ellen never crossed paths, but their stories shared a thread: kindness and betrayal, trust and truth. Jamal learned to lean on his instincts, to carve his own path without shortcuts. He got accepted to a community college, a small step toward his dreams, and his mom threw a party to celebrate, the house filled with laughter. Ellen found strength in her granddaughters, their resilience a mirror of her own. She planted a garden with them, teaching them to nurture life, to grow through hardship. Both carried scars, but they also carried hope. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs to shape. And as Ellen watched Lily and Luna chase fireflies one summer night, and Jamal sketched out his first coding project, they both knew one thing for sure: the hardest fights were worth it, because they led to moments like these, where love and courage won.